Hey y'all, welcome to the channel. Today we're checking out what are the UK's weirdest political traditions. The clothes.
This video is brought to you by Nebula. The UK is a pretty weird place. You need a license to watch TV, the monarch owns all the swans, there's a place called Barton in the Beans, and this guy runs an online news network. This weirdness, though, extends also to our political system, with a number of quirks from hundreds of years ago persisting to this very day.
What are they gonna say? The wigs? The whole parliament thing is weird, how everybody yells at each other. The whole monarchy idea is weird. The monarch is part of the government, but they're not political. The robes are weird. There's a lot of weird stuff. What's he gonna say?
So in this video, we're going to have a look through a few of these, explaining how they came about and how they still function today.
Right.
Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. Much of the weirdness in our political traditions comes from the simple fact that our system is truly just very, very old. Our political system has developed slowly since around the 13th century, when barons and knights advised the monarch to the system that we know today. With this, practices and traditions developed, and while some of the more important ones have been modernised to work in the 21st century, some have been kept as is.
Sorry to stop it, but this statue of Winston Churchill, what a strange pose. Hands on the hips, but backwards hips, like an old man and his back hurts. That statue's a weird political tradition.
And to be fair, it's easy to understand why. If these traditions and practices aren't too important, then the weirdness of them gives the Westminster system a bit of charm, while also reflecting its long history. So let's get into some of the weird political traditions an MP might come across on a typical day in Parliament.
What's the Westminster... what did he call it? The Westminster what? Can't understand this accent.
The weirdness of them gives the Westminster system a bit of...
Westminster system. The Westminster system, or Westminster model, is a type of parliamentary government that incorporates a series of procedures for operating a legislature. First developed in England. That doesn't help. That's not a good definition. Do they mean like procedural, like in America we use Robert's Rules of Conduct? Is it like that? Maybe Westminster system means like, it would be like saying in America the Washington system. Maybe that's what they mean?
So let's get into some of the weird political traditions an MP might come across on a typical day in Parliament.
Right.
Now, starting the day, an MP might decide to go to the cloakroom. It's the UK after all, and the vast likelihood is that it's been raining. Upon hanging up their coat, they might notice a small ribbon. Now, this isn't purely decorative. It's actually there for an MP to hang their swords up. After all, it's well known that MPs aren't allowed to bring their swords into the House of Commons.
Oh.
There's even a rumour that the lines that MPs must stand behind when debating the House of Commons chamber are deliberately designed to be 2 sword lengths apart, in order to prevent particularly aggressive parliamentarians from resorting to duelling.
Wow, that's crazy. Brilliant, though. I mean, gotta keep them separated. But if they're not allowed to bring swords into the room, maybe this tradition started before they had the rule of you can't bring your sword in. I bet they had this rule set up, keep them separate, 2 swords lengths, and then some brilliant asshole brought in like a spear or something, or like a triple length sword. If you're gonna bring in a triple length sword, no swords at all, sir. That's logical. This is making sense. Yeah, of course.
In order to prevent particularly aggressive parliamentarians from resorting to duelling. However, some actually think this theory is unlikely because, as we stated earlier, swords are banned and have been in the House of Commons for centuries. Anyway, once the business of swords is dealt with, an MP might decide that the next best thing to do is source some snuff. As most of our viewers were born in either the 20th or 21st century and not the 18th or 19th, it's likely that many of you don't actually know what snuff is.
Tobacco?
Effectively, it's a form of tobacco that's snorted rather than smoked. This was introduced in Parliament in 1694, when smoking was banned in the Commons. As such, a doorkeeper ensures that the so-called parliamentary snuff box is always stocked with snuff from a local tobacconist. The current box was created in 1943 from a door frame that was blown apart by a German bomb, and has had inscribed on the lid all of the principal doorkeepers since its creation. However, despite its fancy design, if our hypothetical MP were to take up their entitlement to free snuff, this would make them the first MP to do so in decades. A Freedom of Information request from 2010 found that the last time an MP used the box was all the way back in 1989. So perhaps our MP will give Snuff a miss, and instead make their way to the green benches so that they can start doing the work of representing the constituents that elected them.
Snuff, like it's crushed up tobacco that you snort. A type of smokeless tobacco that is made of finely ground or shredded tobacco leaves. It may have different scents and flavors. It may be moist or dry. Moist snuff tobacco is placed in the mouth, usually between the cheek and gum or behind the upper or lower lip. Dry snuff tobacco is inhaled through the nose. My dad used to chew tobacco before he had kidney cancer and had one of his kidneys removed. Then he stopped. But before then, he used to chew tobacco. And in his truck, he had a tobacco spit cup in a cup holder. He wouldn't always empty it out at the end of the day. But he stopped because he had cancer. Thank you, cancer. Hopefully the last time I ever say that. Anyway, Snuff. Weird.
Guarantee themselves a space on the famous green benches that day, then they'll need to reserve a seat. Because despite there being 650 elected MPs, the benches can actually only seat 427 of them. This design, along with the fact that the benches are designed to be facing each other, deliberately makes the chamber seem more full, more heated, and more adversarial.
What did that say? Go get your what? Go get your sword,
There was a moment
lad.
when this could have been changed, though. As we mentioned more offhandedly than we probably should have earlier, the House of Commons was hit by a German bomb during the Second World War, and was set to be rebuilt. The then Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, had the option to change the design of the chamber and make it less adversarial, perhaps by making it bigger and opting for a semicircular design, something that parliaments around the world were adopting at the time. He decided not to, and rebuilt it pretty much as it used to be. So MPs still have to cram into the chamber. But how would our MP reserve their seat? Well, they do this by attending morning prayers and filling out a prayer card. This is one of the only ways to reserve a seat, and can be important on days when high-profile debates are scheduled.
So to get a seat, you have to go to church? That seems really messed up. Like, why not just have enough seats for everyone? There's room for some seats. Like, room for some more seats back there? Are these seats? You could put some seats up here? Like, what? Is it... if the representatives aren't represented, and they can't find a damn seat in the place, are they really representatives? Ask yourselves that, British people. Come over to America, where we have a semicircle legislation and two different groups of legislators. It's confusing. This is weird. This video's proving to be exactly what the title said.
Regardless, assuming that our MP does get a seat booked, they may go off to their parliamentary office to get some constituency work done while they wait for their debates. Their office may be located in the Palace of Westminster or the adjacent Portcullis House, which is attached to the palace via an underground tunnel that goes under the road. If this is the case, then our MP needs to be informed of any votes happening in the chamber, so that they can rush back in time for their vote to be counted. Lucky for them, around the whole parliamentary estate, bells and TVs are installed that light up and inform members that their presence is required in the chamber. These bells were even installed in popular pubs, such as the Red Lion around Westminster,
Smart.
just in case MPs had slunk off for a cheeky mid-afternoon pint.
Yeah.
Many of these now, though, don't work. So our MP has at least some reminders of votes, but it's worth remembering that these votes only happen when Parliament is in session. Parliament often closes for a number of weeks through the year, with the recess dates aligning roughly with school holidays. It's also closed, though, for the period of prorogation, which is officially the period between the end of a parliamentary session and the King's Speech, which officially starts the next parliamentary session. Now, the King's Speech is a pretty unique event. Essentially, the monarch sits in the House of Lords and reads a speech written by the government, announcing their policies for the next session. This is one of the only...
Does he have to wear all those clothes? What are these on his shoulders? All right, I'm going to look it up. I'm not finding an easy, findable answer, so I don't care.
This is one of the only situations where MPs are allowed to sit in the House of Lords, but can only do so after being invited. This is when one of the weirdest parts of the day happens. In essence, a person with the title of Black Rod, who is responsible for controlling access to the House of Lords, goes to the House of Commons chamber to summon MPs for the speech. As they get to the door is deliberately slammed in their face, which is done to symbolise the Commons' independence. As with many things listed in this video, it probably isn't essential to the day-to-day functioning of Parliament, but it has become an iconic quirk in the British political system.
I want that job of slamming the door in someone's face. That sounds fun. That is a weird tradition. It's to symbolize independence.
As with many things listed in this video, it probably isn't essential to the day-to-day functioning of Parliament, but it has become an iconic quirk in the British political system. But what do you think? Are these the weirdest political processes and traditions?
Pretty weird.
Have we missed anything big? Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah.
That's not
Wait, what?
the end of this story either. So if you want to dive deeper into this and other stories, we have an exciting announcement. That's because it was revealed in Variety no less that we're building a new product with our partners at Nebula called
Oh, I do have a comment. You need to darken the blacks of your videos more. See, there's not enough contrast in your video. TLDR news. Look at the contrast I have going. Perfect amount of contrast. Yeah, these are weird political traditions. I feel like there's some more that I've heard before, but I can't think of. What's with the wigs? Just a little weirdness to complement this video. I don't know. What am I doing? I think these little weird traditions that happen help to strengthen the community. It gives them something to rally around, and it's a tradition. I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's like, it strengthens the sense of culture. I don't know. Sociology. Tradition contributes a sense of comfort and belonging. That's what it does. It brings families together and enables people to reconnect with friends. Tradition reinforces values such as freedom, faith, integrity, a good education, personal responsibility, a strong work ethic, and the value of being selfless. Wow, that's what tradition does. That's why these are here. It's all for the greater good, and honestly, it's fun. Anyway, yeah, it was a good video. Very interesting. I hadn't heard of these. Well, thank you all for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. Later. Later.